Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Power Forward podcast. I'm your host, Jackie Rainica, a mindset coach and former Ivy League athlete, here to help student athletes, parents, and coaches focus on progress, not perfection. Every other week, we'll welcome a new guest with relevant experience to share their perspectives and tools to support growth on and off the field. This Power Forward journey has been filled with full circle moments lately, and I am so glad you all get to experience this one. I recently wrote a blog post about my next guest, and I figured I'd share an excerpt as part of the intro. Few people have shaped my life as deeply as my high school soccer coach, Madigan. Amid the early wake-ups, endless sprints, and distinct screams from the sidelines, I didn't fully realize the impact she was making. Every rule, every drill, every moment had a purpose. We didn't just win on the field. Coach Madigan had a rare ability to be both the most intimidating person on the field and your biggest supporter. I now consider her a role model and close friend. Madigan recently retired as a soccer coach with a record of 384, 55, and 12, including 3 straight undefeated seasons. She grew up in North Jersey, setting records at her high school, then played Division I soccer at Monmouth University and the University of Delaware. She earned her Master of Education and has spent her career as a health and physical education teacher, while always coaching and inspiring others to be their best versions of themselves. She even recently started her own business called MADE for Madigan Athletic Development and Education. When she's not coaching the next generation of leaders, she's spending quality time with her wife and 2 adorable kiddos. Mama Mads, welcome!
Really is full circle.
I know, you're in your office. I see the Northern Highlands colors.
Yep. It's like a flashback.
However many years ago, 15, 16, 17?
I can't do the math.
Anyway, if I was sitting in your office right now, I'd be very, very nervous.
That's funny because I just recently had some kids come back from college. They're freshmen in college. They came back to have lunch with me recently, and they are both currently Division I athletes. And as they were knocking on the door, they were like, "Oh my God!" It's like I'm like nervous, like we're starting preseason, and I'm like, "No, guys, that should have passed already. You're done here."
Well, you have coached a lot of Division I athletes. Have you counted?
Yes, I have not. Al Snyder probably has somewhere along the way, but not me. I haven't.
Shout out Al. He'll be our first listener.
Yes, no doubt.
Okay, so looking back at your upbringing, what made you so competitive?
That's a great question. I feel like there's probably so many factors, to be honest. You know, I think part of that was growing up with 2 older brothers and kind of being thrown in the back seat and going to various sporting events as they were growing up. And then, once it was my opportunity, I kind of wanted the spotlight on me. And it was like, forget what they're doing. I need to win and be really good at things sports wise so that my parents pay attention to the 3rd child. Outside of that, I just feel like I loved the competitiveness. As far back as I can remember, I remember in elementary school, I was like, there were other students that were so excited that field day was around the corner because it was like a day that we weren't in school. And I'm like, no, I want to win. I love field day, but I love it because it's like competitive and there's races and there's trophies. So I feel like it wasn't just something that kind of came on later. I feel like I remember those feelings and thoughts when I was like in 2nd grade at Roosevelt Elementary with field day.
I guess it's a little bit of like nature versus nurture, but it sounded like there was an environment around you that was pushing you.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like when you have positive experiences in a competitive environment, it makes you enjoy it and makes you want to continue to do it, where the opposite also probably holds true. And I was fortunate to experience it in a positive manner growing up and, wanted to continue that route as an adult.
Yeah. And what about your parents? What were they like?
Both my parents came here from Ireland at a very young age. And I think that, they instilled other traits. But I think competitiveness kind of goes along with both of them as well. I think hard work it was just something that was expected of us. My mother came over here when she was 17, not really in education. My father, the same. He was about 18 or 19, but they weren't fortunate enough to go through an educational system that really provided them with opportunities here, but they left their country for that in mind. It was like they wanted the better opportunities, they wanted a different life, and so they left their families behind, and they were the only ones from their respective families to come here.
And what did they do for work? Like, what was the example they were setting?
So, when they had come here back then, they needed to have a sponsor. You needed to find somebody that you could live with and that would sponsor you in the sense of signing off on papers that like you were a good human being and that you were working hard, in this country and so on and so forth. My father kind of took jobs anywhere and everywhere. He was a jack of all trades. It was painting, it was custodial work, it was at a bank, it was a doorman in New York City in his 20s. I mean, it was all over the place. And, my mother had come here and had immediately found a family in Midtown Manhattan where she was kind of a nanny and a homemaker for them and had taken care of a lot of the kids and, around the house and cooking and cleaning, and had done that for like a really long time. And then she was a waitress at a restaurant in New York City that she still talks about to this day. And then there goes my lights. I got to move around in here. They're all like, sometimes I got to do like a dance. There we go. But I feel like they were just the type of people that no judgments. They didn't care what they did as long as they were earning money and that they enjoyed the people that they were around. And I feel like they had done that their entire lives, regardless as to what their position or their title was. My mother still cleans houses and she's 86 years old.
Unbelievable. She's so sweet. So it sounds like they were setting an example for you. Did you ever feel pressure from them or pressure as an athlete in general?
Definitely not from them. They were like, if you want to go to college, you fill out your applications. I don't even know how long they are. I don't know what you need to do. Go find a guidance counselor. It was very much hands off. And my father had worked a lot when I was growing up to the point where my mother was the one that was kind of dropping me off, picking me up, coming to my sporting events. If my father was there, it was just a weekend and he wasn't working. But I feel like, with regards to the pressure, it was really the pressure that you put upon yourself and what kind of athlete you wanted to become. For example, the recruiting process and these elite club teams were not around as much when I was growing up. And so if you wanted to play in college, you had to play on a club team. And it was like, there was only 3 club teams. There wasn't many to choose from. And there were tryouts and either you made it or you didn't. There weren't team A, team B, and team C. And if you made it, you definitely felt like, okay, I have an opportunity here where I might be able to play at the next level. But I feel like some of that, the pressure was always there, I think. I think it was just different in the sense of, if you look back when I was growing up in terms of my high school experience, my college experience in the late 90s, it was like there was pressure there, but at one point it stopped. Like you left the field and you left the court and it was done with. And there was time to just do other things. Whereas now, I don't know that pressure ever leaves. It's just, it's very different with social media, and you have the NIL, and you have parents, and you have coaches and recruiting and rankings. It's just, it's entirely different. And I feel like as a young person growing up back then, the only pressure that was really existing was the pressure that you put upon yourself. It depended on where you wanted to go as an athlete. Things like mental toughness really meant like endurance. It was about like grinding it out and not reflecting. And stress was normalized. It wasn't really addressed per se. And I think our resources were not what they are now. And I think that those are 2 different extremes as well.
So when did you kind of decide, okay, yeah, I want to do this. I want to play soccer in college?
I think it wasn't until like my junior year in high school. And if you look at that now, if a junior in high school now said, I'm going to play club soccer now, or, AAU basketball because I want to play in college now, people would be like, what? You are way too late.
Right.
And it wasn't late. then, because people weren't getting recruited when they were 14 years old, 13 years old. It was just it was a different time. It was a different era. Time never ran out, and if you really, really wanted it, you'd find an avenue. And it might not be your number one choice, but there was certainly choices where you could go and play. So I feel like really my junior year of high school, I was like, okay, I'm gonna zone in on soccer. And in doing so, I had to make a choice on whether or not I was going to play high school basketball anymore, because I couldn't be a 3-sport athlete anymore. And I was a 3-sport athlete my freshman and most of my sophomore year in high school. And then I had to stop doing it by my junior year because I wanted to focus on soccer.
Wow. So that specialization kind of started.
Yes.
We see that more and more now, but
Correct.
you felt like you had to play all year round when
I
it wasn't
did.
possible.
I did, because there was flexibility with the soccer aspect, where there was an understanding of your fall season is for your high school. And then once winter season came, there were showcases, and there were limited amount of showcases back then. And so when there were 4 per year, you wanted to go to all 4.
Right.
And I just remember that one of the biggest ones was that December break, and it was in Florida, and it was one of the biggest showcases. And I knew that if I had played basketball in high school, that there was no way that my coach was going to say, it's okay, you can leave for a week and go play soccer and then come back and play. It was like, you made a choice. Either you were here 100% of the time or you weren't.
Right.
And so I knew I still wanted to play softball spring season, and I knew that was going to be challenging. And so I had ultimately decided that I wasn't going to play high school basketball. I was going to continue with high school soccer and softball, and then I was going to continue with club.
That must have been hard. I mean, I remember you being very understanding, but also I was so scared to ask, not only because you had this expectation for our team, but I didn't want to let my teammates down
Sure.
in saying that I was going to miss a day of soccer to go to a basketball showcase.
Right.
I just think things are so different now. And I guess
Correct.
that's our whole motto and story we're telling here, is that things have changed.
Yes,
So,
and you have to adapt. I mean,
right.
the way that I coached back then, I wouldn't survive as a coach now. Do it with that sort of philosophy and expectation. I feel like, there are still coaches that are holding on to that. And it's okay to have high expectations, and it's okay to have high standards, but you have to change with the times and the culture and society. And I don't blame kids. They have grown up with times changing, and so it's not fair to them, just like it's not fair to us. But I feel like everybody has to find some compromise in that.
Yeah, you had a rule with our team, and I still tell this to everyone, and they think it's awesome, but also like, wait, what? That we had to, no matter what, if we stepped foot on the field, on the soccer field, we were to be on our toes, like, jogging in place, kind of. And honestly, I loved it because it got us into that mentality. Okay, you're on the field, you're here to play, you're here to compete. And also we would do it before like the whistle would blow at games.
Yep.
So it would be intimidating to the other
Sure.
team. But then I would find myself at basketball practice a few weeks later, like during soccer season, on my toes on the basketball court. And it just became a habit. Which
Yeah.
you were very good at teaching and instilling. I know you retired recently, but is that something that you continued to teach, or how did it change?
It was definitely something we continued with. How often the kids really soaked that in, really kind of, I would say, varied year to year. There were some kids that were very much into it and I wouldn't say knew, but understood where that was coming from and the why. And then there were some kids that were just resistant. Like, why do I have to do that? It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't really help me.
Right.
And, they would be on their toes. It just wouldn't look the same, if you will. I mean, like, you guys looked like you were ready to go, and it was like, if you weren't, someone on your team was going to be like, what are you doing? Where it's now, it's like, okay, come on, guys, you got to get on your
like
toes.
just lifting,
and
like
people
twinkle
would be
toes.
like, yeah, like a little bit of this, not like, So it was different, and I think that has also changed. Some of those pregame warm-ups in terms of like what you were doing to get your team ready has also changed as a coach, because I feel like each team differs and the personalities within that team differs. And so what those players need to get themselves in the right mindset it varies. I've had one team where, and I'm sure you've seen this at the collegiate level too. I think ESPN recently just did a thing on this as well. Some coaches are out there dancing with their kids during a warm-up routine, and it's very relaxed. It's very a chilled environment. People are having fun. You've seen it at the U.S. women's national team level.
Mhm.
And then on the other end, you've seen a very structured, very disciplined warm up where there is not fun and music, and one way is not the right way. Every team is different, and what each team needs and the athletes need changes. And I think that you really need to know your team in order to get them ready for games.
So it's not like you had your rules and you kept them. You had philosophies that you understood would help, but you also adapted to who your teammates or your players were.
Yeah, personnel. Right.
Yep.
Some
And then
teams were great with the music, and others, they were good for a couple minutes and then they would start to fool around. It's just a lack of maturity. And so we couldn't do it.
yeah. Now with the parents, you also had a rule that you do not talk to them. So if they have an issue, we were to talk with them and then maybe bring that issue to you or just kind of like tell them to kick rocks. That I'm sure has also changed a lot. Or has it?
Not really.
I love it.
And I say that because, with the rule with parents, and I still get that because at my meetings, when we had the Meet the Coaches night, we still followed the same structure for that meeting. And and then I get to the point where I'm like, okay, here are my expectations for you as parents. And I say the same thing, like, don't contact me or speak to me about, and then I list the things. And that has never changed. And ultimately it was never about ego or avoiding confrontation with parents. It was really more so about protecting the student athlete's experience and protecting the integrity of the program. And I say that because one of our ultimate philosophies was that we wanted to develop and instill and grow life skills. Communication, ownership, accountability. And that stemmed from if the athlete had a concern or they didn't like decisions that were happening that directly were impacting them, they needed to be the ones to go speak to their coaches. And I say that because it's a skill that you need in life. You need it in the workplace, you need it in relationships, you need it in college. And I felt like high school is a prime location for you as a high school coach to start to instill those specific types of life skills. And oftentimes we see that when parents are stepping in those types of situations, it is about the playing time and it is about the decision making that the coaches are ultimately deciding. And it removes growth from the athlete. And to me, that was taking away from the athlete's overall experience. And I'm happy to talk to you about any issues regarding, student safety or their well-being or character concerns. But when it came to conversations regarding the playing time or tactical decisions, that was just off the block.
Everyone knew it. But you were very good. But you were very good at setting those expectations. And at what point in your coaching career did you say, okay, this is going to be my philosophy? Or was it something that kind of formed as you learned and made mistakes or?
Sure. I think you ultimately start with some kind of philosophy. It's very difficult to be in a leadership position if you don't have some kind of baseline. And I think that you have that baseline and you have certain things that you are not going to steer from. You're not going to bend, certain things that you really, really believe are going to make, shape, and form your culture, your program. And then as the years go on, there's times where you're going to add something, you're going to take something out, you're going to change something because you need to adapt. And so I think that it's while it's still there in some regards to some of those initial foundational principles, it's ever evolving.
Did you always know you wanted to be a coach and a teacher?
I think so. I think that some of that stemmed again from going back to like my childhood. I mean, I absolutely loved some of my elementary school teachers to the point where like I have gone back to see those people for as long as they were teaching. I started teaching in my 20s, right out of college. I was 22 years old, my first teaching job. And it was also my first coaching opportunity. But I went back to my elementary school at 22, at 24, at 25, and I kept seeing, all my teachers, Mr. Hunter, Mrs. Carroll, Miss Mooney, Mrs. Euler. I was like, hey guys, I'm a teacher now too, because those people ultimately gave me such a positive experience. And you remember those teachers. You remember them forever. I think that's relatable to anybody. That there's some teacher that you have an experience with that shapes you and just provides you with safety and positivity. And then you just are like, I think I could do that. I think I could do that for somebody else. And I was fortunate that I had coaches as well. You know, my high school softball coach, my club soccer coach, they're one of the best people in the world. Mike O'Neill, who's now the head coach at Rutgers women's soccer program, was my club coach growing up in high school. And Brenda Canal was my coach in high school. And you know, she was a big part of Title IX. And so I feel like I was lucky to be around such tremendous individuals that were inspiring.
But it sounds like you were mature enough to understand that in the moment and know that how important relationships are.
Definitely not in the moment. I was pretty immature. I was
shortly
fun.
thereafter. Shortly thereafter.
Fun. I didn't take life too seriously
That's great.
as a kid or a high school kid. I felt I was like, I'm living my best life in high school.
That's awesome.
You know, it was just, I had such a great experience in high school with my friends, my teachers, just the environment. And I feel like, you know, you get into teaching when you're in college, and it's not until you're actually in a classroom. You know, they prep you and they do all these things, and you learn all these different areas that you're going to teach in. But until you are in a classroom with students, I feel like that's when you're like, all right, I can survive this, or I'm going to thrive in this, or this is definitely not for me.
Back to culture, because I think you also foster that culture in your classrooms too. Like, people understand the expectations. If you were to walk into a locker room, what tells you instantly whether a team has a strong, healthy culture or not?
You know, I think one of the sure signs is like, how are those student athletes engaging with one another? You know, you walk in and you haven't said a word yet. Are they sitting next to each other? Are they engaging in conversation, or are people on their headphones? Are they on their phones? Are they isolated? Are they sitting within grade levels? You know, things like that, I think definitely gives you an indication as to what kind of team environment and team culture there is. If there's fun and laughter and engagement and conversation, you already feel like it's a healthy, fun environment where student athletes feel safe, and that they're being open and they're chit-chatting, and it's a comfortable environment. And then the opposite is true. You know, what's going on here if it's quiet, or if students are just sitting within their own grade levels? What if they're just sitting on their phones? You know, I think both of those extremes really kind of paint a picture.
It's really hard to change a culture, I think.
It is.
With teenage girls, but also anywhere you're leading. If you were to walk into that room and they were being isolated or kind of keeping to themselves, what would you do?
I think you ask questions. You know, you can't change anything until you figure out what the problem is and why the problem exists. And we can't understand that problem until we talk about it. And so it's like, well, what's going on in here? Why is everybody sitting like this? Is this what we normally do? And why do we sit like that? And,
Right.
you know, I found that more often in regards to, you know, working with this business more so recently over the past year, is that, you know, there's so many places that teach athletes what to do. This is what you're supposed to do. And, you know, fewer places teach them how to think and how to lead and how to respond when things get hard. And we take for granted that they have these skills already in place. And when they don't, then what? You can't have these expectations for them if they don't have those specific skills in place. And so I feel like from that perspective, for me, it's been not only eye-opening, but it's been like very rewarding, because I feel like much of my focus with that is on the leadership side of things, and having cultures that have the accountability and ability to build relationships and communication. And it's not just about winning, but it's about creating a culture within a program that's going to last, regardless as to what athletes come in and out and which coaches come in and out.
Tell us about MADE and what you do with student athletes.
You know, I think that it's a variety of different avenues to explore, but it's just It's about developing athletes that are confident and feeling more prepared and equipped, and not just for the game or for their skill set. It's like, well, what's going to come next? And like, are you prepared to be a leader? Are you prepared to shape a culture? There's the avenue of the skill development for the player that wants to do more individualized training. Sure. But with regards to teams and leadership workshops, those are just the ones that are so much fun for me and so rewarding, because you get to peel back the layers of the onion to find out, well, what's going on with this team and what are the strengths within this leadership group right here, and where are the areas that we need to kind of zone in on to improve. And it's helpful for me. I give them surveys, and so I have some data analysis that ultimately can allow me to sit down with them and say, hey, listen, this is what's come out of these surveys. The three of you are really great at this, and your personality types and leadership traits are really aligned with this, but the two over here are completely opposite. So where do we have balance? Where do we lack balance? And then how do we fix that so that cohesively we're a better leadership group than we were when we walked in here?
That's awesome. And I
Yeah,
think
it's a lot of fun.
Well, I also think it's a skill that can be taught to coaches as well, because, I mean, you're not with them every day. You're there
Correct.
and you can point certain things out. And I think there's beauty in that, being like an outsider coming in. And then also the coach then learning from that and being like, wow, like taking a step back as well and saying, okay, yeah, I didn't think of it that way. And here's different ways we can work together. So that's awesome.
And I think that going back to philosophy, everyone has different philosophy on
Right.
leadership. There are some coaches that don't name captains at all, for various reasons. And those that do clearly have a philosophy. I have always named captains. I believe it is imperative to have some kind of leadership group for any organization to be successful. That's my philosophy. Not everybody shares in it. And so, maybe you have 8 seniors that are considered leaders, and that's a very different environment than these 3 are your captains.
Right. You gotta balance all the personalities. Well, I remember, I mean, I won't call anyone out, but I remember that there was a conflict between my 2 teammates, and they weren't talking, and there were issues on the field, and it was affecting everyone. Do you want to say what you did, and would you do that again today, or have things changed?
I'm pretty sure, if I remember that correctly, that they were told to hang out in a locker room for quite some time. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Are we thinking about the same thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if I did that now, I would definitely get questioned on what my philosophy was behind that. Now it still makes sense.
Yes.
Because it's like siblings fighting,
Right.
It's like in my opinion, it's like colleagues fighting as well. Like the 2 of you or the 3 or 4 of you need to sit down in this room and do not leave until you have it all figured out. Put it all out there, yell, scream, cry. I don't care what you do, but do something so that everyone else isn't suffering. And that was really it. I remember sitting down with the 4 of them at the time, because we had 4 captains, and ultimately the issues were with 2. However, the 2 impacted the 4, because the 2 leaders in the group of 4 are certainly impacting what's going on within the leadership group. And then it trickles down. You got 4 kids talking about person A, and then you got 3 kids over here being like, well, I'm on so-and-so's side, and 7 kids over here being like, I have no idea what's going on. And ultimately, it needed to get fixed. And there was so much that I was going to do, because I wasn't aware, nor is any coach, about all the personal things that are going on within that dynamic. And at some point, you communicate your expectations and why it's important for the kids to do that. And I think that I've relayed that information to every coach that I have worked with over the past, 2 decades. If you explain your why more times than not, you will alleviate issues and questions. It doesn't matter if it's to your parents at your parent meeting, to your captains, to your team. If you say, this is what we are doing and this is why, there's an understanding there. They might not agree, but at least they hear where you're coming from. And I
Mm.
think that that same philosophy held true in that specific moment. Like, I believe that you have to work this out, and I will help you navigate through what's going on within our team, but I don't know the ins and the outs of what's going on off the field that you might be dealing with. And so whatever it is, you have to sort it out. And when you guys are ready, knock on the door and I'll open it for you to come out. And that's what they did. And it was like, I don't know what happened in there. I still to this day don't know what happened in there, but man, they were a whole new dynamic, and they were a whole new team after that.
Well, it's also showing them like you have it within yourself. Like you don't necessarily need me in this exact moment to help you.
Sure.
I trust that you can work this out and figure this out for our team. And I think that is sending a huge message to them too. Funny memories.
It's another life skill, you know? Like, how are you going to overcome and handle adversity when things are not given to you on a silver platter, or they don't just work out, and like, it's hard now. So now what? And, you know, more and more often as young people can navigate through those circumstances on their own, the more they're equipped for life, in my opinion. You know, and I understand it as a parent now. You want to pick up the phone and solve it for them. You want to, like, don't go down the slide head first. You're going to get hurt. Well, sometimes they got to go down the slide head first and get hurt to realize that they probably shouldn't go down the slide.
I just imagined both of your kids doing that.
Yeah, one more so than the other, but nonetheless. Yeah.
But okay, so how did becoming a parent maybe change the way you coach or teach, or how you define success?
You know, I think that the parenting didn't really change how I coached. I think that I was still demanding. I still had high expectations. I don't think kids made me any less intense. I was still just as, I won't say just as loud and crazy as I was back in the early days, but, you know, I was still very intense, very much into the game. And you could see that from any game that you would come to. But I think the parenting has really changed my definition of success. And I think that holds true to a degree with teaching. I think over the years, as you see, you know, student athletes come through your program, that, you know, sometimes you just realizing how things are so different for them in the environments that they're growing up in now as compared to the old days. But I think that, you know, success is happiness, as simple as I can put it. I think that it's not about the grades. It's not about the college name on your sweatshirt. It's not about the money or the club program that you play for. I think what matters most is, like, you look back and it's like, are you a good person? You know, do you have relationships with other people? Like, how do you treat people when no one's around? I see oftentimes that we have young people so focused on themselves to get to the next step. Like, just worry about your grades and make sure that they're good so that you can get into a good college. And then when you get it into a good college, make sure that you know, you have a good job because you need to make money. And it's like, and they just cross it off as they go.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, are you a good person? Like, do you see that there's garbage on the floor in front of you? Can you hold the door for somebody else? And, you know, I think it's really about the person that you are and the character traits that you exhibit, and how happy you are in your life, and whether you left this place a better place. Is really success to me.
Well, you've taught me all of that. Hopefully I live that way, but I'm so grateful that you were in my life and still are in my life. But at that time of my life when, you know, we are such impressionable little people, I know I was a big person, but it's such an important time of your life when you're developing. Sure. And like, you're not with your parents necessarily as much as your teachers and your coaches. So it's really important to have such awesome role models around you. And you were one of those people.
I appreciate that.
Is there anything else I forgot that you wanted to mention?
I don't think so. Man, we had one hell of a run though, didn't we?
Oh, it was great.
Best.
I mean, Max jokes. He says, all right, close the yearbook. I'm like, the yearbook is open. It will always be open.
You know, it's just, it's funny because when you're in it and you're 14 and 15 and 16, like, you are just like living it and you don't even realize the impact. You know, for me, it's the same that you just said. Like, I didn't realize back then how much of a positive impact that I would have on you and other athletes. until you're gone. And then you reflect on what that experience was really like, that you
Right.
then realize like, wow, like it was really positive because of A, B, and C. And I think the same holds true as an athlete, because what was done in the time frame that you were here was just unheard of. It was like, what is happening that they haven't lost a game? What is this? This can't be true. And who plays a high school sport with that many kids in the stands? I mean, it was epic. It was epic.
It
And
was.
it has been untouched since. And I think that as we were all going through that in all of those years, like we didn't realize what we were actually doing. We were just like, this is fun. This is great. Like we're good. We're actually good, you know?
But I also think we were appreciating it in the moment. Yeah.
I think we appreciated like those memories and those
Yeah.
big victories, and like they were special, but I don't think we fully understood what we were
Totally not.
actually doing.
You're right. You're right. You're right. Yeah. Wild.
Yeah.
Where can people find you and work with you?
So my website, madetobechampions.com. We're on Instagram, Made to Be Champions. We're on X. You can find me lots of information on my website.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending
You got
time
it.
with us.
It was so great to chat with you.
You have to go back to class now?
To go back to my full-time job soon. Yes. Couple minutes, have another cup of coffee.
Oh, love it. Well, thank you again.
You got
You're
it.
the best.
You got it. It was great seeing you.
Hug.
All right. Love you, kiddo.
Love you.
All right. See ya.